Practice Exam 2, Part 1. You should definitely watch all these Practice Exam 2 videos before the real Exam 2 on Monday the 23rd of March at 2:45 p.m. You'll have to do it right at that time and send it back before 4:30 p.m. as explained in the email. What I've said in lectures about practice exams and their relation to real exams still holds true. The practice exam is very good practice for the real exam. The point breakdown, you should all have the practice exam too. You should definitely do it before the real exam. Have a go at it before you watch these videos. The point breakdown in the real exam is exactly the same as the point breakdown in the practice exam. So you've got a section A and B, whole things out of 160 points. Section A, definitions and questions 60 points, and a whole 100 of the 160 points on proofs. So what we're doing is I will be emailing the exam to you. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes, a little bit longer, to do the exam. It's officially open book, and then you will email it back to me on Sunday night. If not before, I'll send you a list of the symbols you should use if you're filling it out online, to use for conjunction and negation and the hook and whatnot. Someone wants to wish you luck for the exam. Say good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. School's closed. So, what was I saying? Yeah. Right, you'll fill it out online, you'll do the exam online, you'll send it back to me. So, it's officially open book because I can't stop you opening your books, even though the usual exams, of course, are closed books and you have to have memorized all the rules and whatnot. But you do have this time limit, so if you are not well versed in logic and you have not practiced a lot doing especially proofs, but also knowing where all the definitions are and what is in what chapter and so on, then you're going to waste too much time attempting to look up the answers to, say, questions in the definitions in the definition section, and you're going to waste a lot of time, and you're still going to do badly. So you really do need to study and practice. Don't think that because it's open book, it's going to be easy to get through this exam without studying for it and preparing a lot and practicing and doing lots and lots of exercises, again, especially for the proofs and the theorems and whatnot, because you will be under a time crunch, and you won't be able to learn how to do proofs in the time allotted for the exam. So you've got to know how to do them beforehand. Okay, so these practice exam 2 videos, I'll be going through the practice exam, occasionally saying things about what's to be expected for the real exam, right? Great, so we'll begin. So you should have it in front of you. Definitions and questions. The first question, what is the definition of a proof? Okay, so there are definition questions. It suffices to say a proof is a series of justified steps in which the last step is the desired conclusion. Okay, that's what a proof is. It's a sequence of justified steps in which the last step is the desired conclusion. A proof, there's also the definition of a derivation. Derivation is also a sequence of justified steps. It's distinguished from a proof in that a derivation does not end in the desired conclusion. It's just a sequence of justified steps. There's a new definition of justified step, you should note. You should use the definitions from Chapter 9. So if you recall from reading Chapter 9, which I expect you all have, again, this exam is on Unit 7, 8, and 9, proofs in sentential logic. Unit 9, where we're introduced to conditional proof and indirect proof, there is a new definition of justified step given, right? They slightly tweak the definition of justified step, right? So if you're asked for the definition of justified step, you should give the updated Unit 9 definition, right? So the Unit 9 definition of justified step is either a premise or an assumption or a step that follows from the previous steps according to one of the rules of inference, right? So the or a premise, that's what's added in Unit 9. Because before we introduced conditional proof and indirect proof, we like that CNN thing. Before we introduced conditional proof and indirect proof, we couldn't make assumptions, right? So now that you can make assumptions and we have rules using assumptions, there is, that's part of the definition of justified step. Justified step is either an assumption, either a premise or an assumption or a step that follows from the previous steps according to one of the rules of inference. All right, question 2 is a lovely question. I put this up on the board, 2A, B, and C. You'll remember these from, kids running around all over the place. You'll remember these from, kids' bedroom is my lecture hall. From page 139, so remember we started proofs and sentential logic in Unit 7, and as I stressed, and as Klenk stressed in the text, a big part of, so this question is just decide whether the following statements below, A, B, and C, is or is not a substitution instance of the following statement form. This is the statement form, these are the particular statements. So if you remember the exercises from Unit 7, page 139-40, the first exercise, which we did spend some time on, were like this question, were instances of this question. It's a very important question because it gets you in the practice. It's very good to do these exercises. Those exercises, question 1 from Unit 7, which there's a lot of questions there, because they get you in the habit of recognizing various formulas, get you in the habit of being able to answer the question whether or not certain statements, particular statements with A's and B's and C's, are or are not substitution instances of particular statement forms. That's what the question is. Why is that so crucial? Because so much of what doing proofs is, as I've said before, is learning to recognize big, long, horrible, ugly formulas as instances of simple statement forms, right? So, as I stressed, learning to do proofs is one necessary but not sufficient, one necessary but nowhere near sufficient condition for doing well in these in